I think Oklahoma bodes better, if I'm being honest. I think Oklahoma's system has been better at recruiting need, not stars. Like Oklahoma, for an example, has come into the Southeast and taken 3-star offensive linemen that are now in the league.
Mm-hmm.
They have just done a really good job at recruiting. Now, here's the worry that I have for Oklahoma, which is kind of the polar opposite of Texas. I do worry about them recruiting because I think people need to understand the SEC was going into Texas, and SEC teams were going into Texas before Texas A&M started, and Missouri came into the league in 2012. Teams that really started in the SEC really started recruiting Texas. Go look at the numbers when those teams entered.
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma better be careful. And they better be a Notre Dame type of scenario where you get as many local kids as you can, Texas kids. They're going to have to recruit nationally. Now, you're going to have to go after the Peyton Bowens. You're going to have to get those type of dudes to be able to compete in this league. I kind of, even though they went 6-6 in year one under Brent Venables, I'm a Jeff Lebby fan. I think that they kind of will be okay. I think that they could shock some people a little bit early if they can get some things rolling. I think Jeff Lebby is a witch. As a play caller, he comes from the Heupel and Lane Kiffin train. I think once they get things going, who was the Zach? What was it? Arnold? What was the kid's first name?
Jackson Arnold. The
Jackson
one
Arnold.
He's supposed to be really, really good. And
some people think that he's going to come in and compete and really compete for the starting job against Gabriel. I think that they can do some things. Now they got to get some better pieces. They got really hammered in the transfer portal. I think that and they had the third or fourth, fifth overall class this past season. A lot of that coming from the transfer portal, guys that can play right now. I think that I actually, believe it or not, I think that they have a better transition into the SEC than Texas does. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and we're talking immediately, correct? Like
we're talking about immediately. Well, and I mean, Joe, we got to be careful with talking more than 3 or 4 years coming into the league because so much changes.
Yeah,
right? Like I don't think about. When I look in the future personally, I don't look outside longer than 5 years. And I rarely look at that. I'm talking about a 3-year max. Joe, look what's changed in 3 years so much. Okay.
Yeah.
COVID, the way you recruit. I talked to an SEC position coach today. And he FaceTimed me. And I'm like, what you doing, man? He goes, bro, we don't talk on the phone no more. I'm trying to talk to 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. It's so wild how far it's come. So that's why I don't personally look at it that far out. I can't do it.
I mean, and this is like total hyperbole, but heck, Alabama could just randomly become an independent in 5 years. That's obviously not going to happen, but that's to your point. Anything can change in the SEC in conference realignment. Heck, we could have a merger between the Big Ten and the SEC by the time 5 years from now. So it's hard.
Playoff, Joe. Like we have no idea what if the 12th seed won the playoff.
Yeah, it's anything can happen at this point. Anything can happen. And now that like a Tennessee could have been the 12th seed or something along those lines.
Well, it was Washington would have been the 12th seed. Okay.
Yeah.
Now they listen. Washington's not going to Athens and beating Georgia, but if let's just say hypothetically Georgia would have slipped up one of the games,
right,
and Michigan goes into number one, you trying to tell me that Washington couldn't beat? Washington couldn't beat Michigan because I think they could have.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential for things to happen here. And look, to your point about Oklahoma, I'm not as bullish as you are. I am. This is still a wait and see situation because last year I'm going to be a defender of Oklahoma here, dealing with what they dealt with, losing your head coach that everyone assumed is going to be the face of your program for decades. For him to just dip like that, pull your best player, and then also pull multiple other really highly talented recruits with him to USC, that's devastating. And there's going to be a lot of doubt cast in the locker room. Trying to rally a team after that for Brent Venables is a difficult task. I don't know, though, for certain if he is the long-term solution because he's never really been a head coach before. This was his first full year, But I will say, for how competitive that Oklahoma-Florida State game was, that bowl game, I think that's promising for how good Florida State was last year, considering they beat LSU at the beginning of the season. So I think that there is a lot of promise. There's a lot better outlook for next year, frankly, for Oklahoma, especially considering that I think Dylan Gabriel is the much more experienced player and has already been around the block, and he's a much older player. The transfer portal moves certainly helped them. However, I don't know if I can sit here and say that based on the way that they have recruited, it's been promising. I don't know if I can sit here and say immediately that they're going to have an impact. I don't think that there's enough evidence at all now that we're under Brent Venables and the previous guy is gone in Lincoln Riley. I think it's too big of a question mark. I can't make a decision on either thing, which is, I know, anticlimactic when we're trying to sit here and have takes on this show. There's just not enough evidence. There's not. Anything can happen, like we just talked about there. They could have a complete face plant next year.
So wild that you say that there's no evidence and they have one bad season. One bad season.
Yes.
And Texas has had 20 straight.
Damn. That was a completely different head coach who was leading.
There was multiple
head coaches. Yes. Bob Stoops and
that's
Lincoln
my
Riley.
point, though. That's my point. Brother, they're not far off in as many kind of situations that they've had. The only thing separating Texas and Oklahoma is Texas has a home base for in-state recruiting where Oklahoma does not. And Oklahoma, for to their credit, has been spanking that arse all the live long day.
But just as Texas has had,
and if Venables does bad next year, his ass is out.
Yeah. But so here's my point, though, and it goes in line with that, is just as Texas has had really bad luck over the past decade, and they have not been able to right the ship whatsoever. They're transitioning into a second year for Brent Venables, going 6-6, where next year this could be just a stepping stone for another coach. They could then go on their own slippery slope of bouncing between head coaches, and then going into the SEC with an uncertain coaching situation could lead to long-term failure. It is not a conference you want to step into with question marks. That's where I'm getting at here, is that trying to make that transition and how much it really impacted the team, as we saw the amount of guys that left in the transfer portal. I just don't know if they're, again, that's my point here, is I can't sit here and have confidence that the ship is being righted by Brent Venables. I need another season before I can say that. At least Sark has stepped up and had a total turnaround from his first year. The second year was a lot better.